for a copy for myself. Um, Please don't worry if you would prefer to have to not be on the screen and to hide your video. That's perfectly okay. I'd just like to create a copy of this presentation for myself. So, just going to take a quick look at the time. We'll wait a couple more minutes. Um, and yeah, so have you tried any AI tools? Have you tried any software that's out there? What do you think of it? Okay, cool. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, Copilot's interesting. I haven't used it too much. I've used a lot of Gemini, which is the Google tool, and a lot of ChatGPT, which is an OpenAI tool. And then I've used some for that are good for creating marketing content like Jasper and Copy AI. And I've tried a few of the illustration and image making tools, but I kind of prefer doing my own graphic design stuff. I don't like the look of the AI, the way that it comes out, the images and the illustrations. It's a bit cartoon.
Creepy.
It's a bit creepy, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I wonder where others are joining, but anyway, let's get started. So we're gonna talk about AI for good and the ethics behind AI. It's um it's a fascinating software. It's a fascinating way of using a tool to help us create content, but it's also a bit worrying because there's a whole bunch of regulations and laws that still need to be worked through and discussed and accepted. And it's causing big disruptions in many, many different sectors. I've got a few friends who are working in education, in schools and in colleges, and they have said that it's a bit of a nightmare because many young people are using it without considering the aspects of using an AI or just completely taking out the human side of the work and putting it into a piece of software, and then not even checking it through and seeing what it can be used for. So this webinar, AI for Good, AI Ethics, is going to look at the ecosystem of AI and how to strategize for creating an ethical way of using it. And we're going to talk about two specific methods, doing a risk assessment. So seeing what areas you can use it for and your organization. And then also figuring out what specific departments can use the AI without getting into some legal and compliance issues by sharing all of your content and information. So, some of the key takeaways from today will be what is AI and how does it work? We'll look at some real world examples of how AI is being used in nonprofit spaces and small organizations. We'll have a look at the overview of ethical considerations and some potential risks that you could bear in mind. And then there are two documents that you can download, which will give you a roadmap for further learning and implementing an AI ethics strategy in your work. So, what is AI anyway? Well, AI is a way of machine learning where you can use the AI as a collaborator and it can help you to create content, to create strategies, to create images. For example, a lot of this course was generated with AI, where I created the structure and the outline and what I wanted to focus on. And then I put it into Gemini, which is the Google tool, and asked it to create this presentation. And then I also asked it what gaps, so what am I missing in this presentation, and what can you help me so that I give a full idea of the pros and the cons, the good and the bad of AI ethics. So it's really useful. The algorithms from the machine learning take the data and then they try to create it in a more human processed way. So they try to give us back the content in a very human centric way that we can take and we can use. And there are a bunch of different structures that are used. So one is natural language processing, which is where you're trying to get these tools to understand a human way of thinking and processing tasks and activities. There's also computer vision, which is where you can use AI to see certain things and interpret these images for you. So, as an example, I last week I uploaded a document that was in an image form, and I asked it to create the text that it saw, and it created that text for me. So it's amazing for things like accessibility or for people who've got certain disabilities, like a visual disability, for example. And then the last one is deep learning. So essentially, what this is trying to create a brain using machines and the internet, where it's mimicking and imitating the way that our brains think and produce results. So it's really fascinating how we're trying to get a machine to think and act like a human. And AI has been around since the 50s and 60s. And we've seen some examples like Deep Blue, which was a chess playing game through IBM, or things like Amazon's Alexa uses a lot of AI. And same thing with if you've got an iPhone or an iMac, the Siri voice application is also AI based. And so we have these devices with us all the time. They're always listening. My mobile phone is plugged in, charging in front of me, and I'm pretty sure it's listening to the conversation. So it's really the AI ethics is something that you've got to consider, because very soon it's going to be embedded in many, many different things. For example, Copilot, which is a part of a lot of I think it's a Microsoft tool, if I'm not mistaken. So, thinking about some practical applications for nonprofits or for small organizations, it's really fantastic. It can analyze donor data, and it can give you different groups of targets where you can send out your fundraising appeals, and it'll send it out for the correct group that you've analyzed. You can use it for volunteer management, where you can use the artificial intelligence to match volunteers with activities or other groups. You can use it to evaluate the programs and see the data of measuring these impacts, identifying areas of improvement. So I've just finished a program where I received some funding to create a community of practice to help nonprofit workers uh, get leadership positions and leadership training. And I used AI to create a lot of the opportunities in the program and then to measure the impact at the end to submit my report. You can use it a lot for content creation and marketing. So it'll draft social media posts and reports. We're not yet at the stage where it's agentic, meaning it has its own agency. But you can definitely take all of the content it creates and then put it into your social media applications and send it out. Beneficiary supports like adding a chatbot to your websites or your application and getting this chatbot to read through all of the materials and content on your websites and give the right answers, for example. And then data analysis and insights to identify some trends, to have some foresight and forward thinking. So it's very practical, many different options already. So let's focus now on AI ethics. So we know that AI is going to have a big impact on society, and there are a lot of different ways that it's already being embedded in different sectors like healthcare, finance, and in the criminal justice system. It's even being used in the Canadian immigration system, where the immigration forms and folders are scoured using AI, and then certain information is brought to the human so that they can make a more informed choice about the immigration needs or the immigrants that are coming into Canada. So it's really wide-ranging already. And so if we look at the definition of AI ethics, it's exploring the moral principles applied to the design, development, and use of artificial intelligence. And we've really got to focus on this side because often the legalese and the legislation and regulations comes when there is a problem or an issue, such as immigration, where we see that there are some bias in the choices of the artificial intelligence. So, got to focus on the impacts of AI in society, the potentials for AI to cause harm, thinking proactively and having some foresight and the ethical considerations, and then focusing on what's the role of AI in shaping the policy and the regulations. There's a lot of stuff to focus on and think about. So let's think of some of the considerations and the potential risks. We've already seen that there are biased data sets which can lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes. Because the AI is taking existing content that is on the internet, some of this bias in data can include outdated perspectives or even racist or xenophobic perspectives. So you got to make sure that your team keeps an eye out for this in editing. So once you take the results of the AI, you got to focus on, is there a bias and how can we reduce this bias? There's a lot of transparency and copyright concerns because a lot of the content that you're putting into the AI is private content. And we've seen, for example, OpenAI and ChatGPT are currently going through several court cases where they've taken authors' studies and they've taken online libraries, such as academic libraries for universities, and they've just taken all this information and content without correctly attributing or sourcing the information or letting the clients that's using the AI know where this information has come from. So you got to be really careful about the information that you're putting into the AI and make sure that it's representative of your customers and representative of the your privacy issues in your organization. There's a lot of privacy and data security issues with it. So um, we think of AI as a black box content. You have this box, you're not sure what's in it and how it works. And a lot of people don't feel the need to go too deep into the potentials for what you're putting into that black box. So we can think, for example, how terrible would it be if your health insurance started putting your data into artificial intelligence and using that to make decisions? Uh, I mean, it could make the wrong decision. It could send you to the wrong specialists. It could deny your claims. And all of this is without the human on the other side making this decision or helping to form this decision. There's issues with accountability and your content. So you can see that the way that the data gets collected and used by the learning model, there's no accountability in it. And there are no legislations that are protecting your content at the moment. Uh, as an example, a lot of these tools are created in the United States. And so I'm in Canada, and there is no legal precedent to, okay, what happens if OpenAI does something that breaks a Canadian rule or law? Well, there's not much that we can do about that, really. So I see a question in the chat. Thank you for that. Is your data truly safer or more private with a paid version of something like ChatGPT or Copilot? That's a good question. And the answer is it's not safer because a lot of the work currently is by the AI company to take in more and more and more data to create a better learning model or to create a better AI tool and software. Also, if you think that perhaps you've got a paid Chat GPT subscription, maybe someone else has also got a paid Chat GPT subscription and membership, and they can take that content as well. For example, I asked Gemini to create some case studies on how nonprofits could use AI, and it gave me names of companies and case studies and all sorts of information about these organizations. And the membership is only controlled by that organization itself. So there are no guardrails and limits to the content currently. And that's one of the big issues, is that it's just the sea of information that the LLMs and the AI can take depending on what you're prompting it and what you're asking it to do. And then like the final section is for inclusion and accessibility. So we've seen, for example, that there are some marginalized communities that are already being discriminated against or have certain accesses removed. One very clear example in my mind is there is an AI that Elon Musk created that is called Grok. And Grok, I don't know if they've changed the algorithms, but Grok was very pro-white nationalist. and anti-Black. And this is an issue because you can't assume that the results that it's giving are going to be unbiased and fair, especially if the people that are coding it to be unfair and to be what's the opposite of inclusive? Restrictive, I guess. So let's think about some mitigations and some ways that we can reduce these potential risks. So you got to think about the robot takeover narrative. We've sort of moved beyond this stage where we're understanding that you can collaborate and you can partner with these AI, but they don't have that agency yet to make decisions on their own or to move the process forward or the actions on their own. They're always waiting for the human to prompt them to then take the next action. You got to figure out what data sets are you putting into your AI. So if the sources of information, if the identification of people are demographic, you're then giving an option and columns of information that are already separating people in certain ways. So you've got to figure out, okay, is there bias in my existing data, or is there the possibility of when I give it to the AI that it can choose a certain bias or choose a certain way of looking at the data? You can look at the issues of transparency, explainability, and there are challenges of this algorithmic accountability, like Grok, for example. Um, if I can think of a second example, which is with ChatGPT, that there were some recent changes in the last month where it became quite annoyingly pedantic and always like encouraging the human and saying, ending with these statements such as good job or patronizing statements like that. So you got to think about why is it doing this? Why is it wanting, why are the humans that are creating the algorithms wanting it to act in a certain way? Again, the implications of AI on your privacy, on your data security, and your beneficiaries. So, what information are you putting in, and what's the further step and the links of information that the AI can then analyze? You don't want to put in tons of information about your funders, your donors, your beneficiaries with names and financial amounts, for example, or private information like contact details and social insurance numbers, for example. And then there's potential impacts on equity, inclusion, cultural relevance, and accessibility. So you got to think about a risk assessment framework that you can tailor to your organization uh, based on the potential use cases that they want to focus on. So I'll go into one specific example, and that's the privacy principle. So looking at data and privacy and defining privacy in the context of AI. So how do you want this data to be collected, to be stored, and to be used by the AI? What about the ethical concerns? So AI-driven surveillance, are you requesting that it does profiling in a certain way or grouping of data in a certain way? And how does it aggregate the data? So picking separate bits of data to create one story or one group of facts or figures. You got to be quite concerned about some strategies for protecting your client privacy or your organization's privacy. So how can you minimize certain bits of data that you're putting in? How can you anonymize the data? and how can you get informed consent from the people whose data you're using. And then there are a bunch of different regulations that we're starting to see, like GDPR is data and privacy regulation in Europe, and we have CCPA here in Canada. So the governments are slowly starting to work on these laws and regulations, but as usual, they often come behind the times and only when something negative has happened. So you got to think about, like, this is the example for data and privacy, but there are other examples that also need to be thought through. And I can give you a copy of this presentation as a PDF at the end of the webinar. And in it, you're going to see an AI risk assessment framework. And this will clearly define your AI use case for your organization or your work. And it focuses on the purpose, the scope, and the operational contexts of how you can assess the AI risks in the work that you do and in the organization that you work for. And then it's also useful once you've done your risk assessment and you've thought about the areas that AI can take your content and use your data, and areas where you're going to limit it or remove that content and data. And then you can do an AI audit. And this is critically assessing the ethical and the practical implications of how you're going to use AI. And a breakdown of the AI audit process is on the screen for you, so you can assess the proposed or implemented AI use cases. You can evaluate some development methodologies and think about the modeling choices that you're going to use it for. You can analyze data sets used and figure out the potential bias that are in these data sets. You can examine your system architecture and the data strategies and how the data flows from one section of the architecture to another. For example, how the data flows from your payments or accounting department through to the memberships, for example, and then membership sends this out to your clients. You've got to understand the social context that your organization is working within and how your stakeholders are interacting. You got to define some evaluation metrics and figure out the objectives of what you want the AI to do, and then plan for the system evolution, embedding it, implementing the AI structure, and then addressing any external issues that you see coming up as a result of implementing this AI tool. A good way to start is by thinking of an AI strategy, which is the framework in which you're using the AI tools. So you've got to develop some principles for responsible AI use. How are you going to use it in the organization? You got to create ethical guidelines and governance policies and train your people on that. What we're going to use AI for, what we're not going to use AI for, what areas it can work on, what areas it can't work on, for example. Sorry, I've got the hiccups. And this strategy has to be integrated throughout the AI life cycle. So from the start of using the tool, what departments it's flowing through, what data flows it's got, what software it's allowed to connect with, and how to dispose of or encrypt or delete this content and the work at the end to make sure it isn't floating around somewhere. You can also explore some best practices for making sure that inclusion, cultural relevance, and accessibility are thought of. So if you have committees in your organization, that focus on inclusivity or accessibility. You can request that they take on part of this work to consider the AI strategy from their framework, from their lens or their point of view. And then you've got to navigate the overall regulations like government laws and the implications that will be coming out. And these are always developing and always changing. So that has to be an ongoing work. So it's quite a lot to consider the strategy. But making sure that you've got this knowledge and you know about the tools that you're using and you're governing all of this is going to help you develop and implement this AI framework with an ethical lens. So it's good to start with a strategy at the beginning. And then once you've got your strategy and once you've got your framework and you've run it through some actions and you've seen what it's able to do, you can get it to focus. So focus on impacts, explore efficiency gains. So automate certain sections or minimize the human interaction in certain sections. It can help you to fill skill gaps and resource shortfalls. So if there is someone who leaves on your team, or if you have this need on your team, you can figure out AI tools that can help you minimize that and fill that gap. It can help you communicate requirements clearly. It can help you to check your facts. And the last comment is be mindful of mediocrity because often the AI is taking from large language models, and so it can give you very generic results and content. So you've always got to think it through and revise what you're doing, edit the work, see what it's focusing on, what it's not focusing on. So, an example of AI strategy for safety and security principles could be that you're ensuring the safety and the security of the human in the AI system, preventing harm, preventing misuse. You've got to address the potential risks. So, what happens if the system fails or there's a leak in some way? What happens if there's a vulnerability to a cyber attack? What are the unintended consequences of this? Think it through, focus on some actions, and then build these in to mitigate the harm that is being done. Mm-hmm. You got to focus on some strategies for promoting safety and security. So make sure that you've gone through a testing phase. Make sure that you've gone through the validation and then monitor it and see what results you get from that. And then take action based on those results to fill the gaps or fill the holes. And then make sure that you've got some standards and certifications to ensure AI safety, like this webinar, learning more about it, becoming aware of what you can do, what you should consider not doing, etc. And you can do this through a roadmap. So you can start small and identify a specific low risk area to start your AI exploration. Build internal knowledge. So encourage learning and training within the team. Sit down and talk about it. What's working, what's not working. What have we missed out? What do we need to consider for the next time that we run this action? If you're not sure, you can always seek some expert guidance, get a consultant in, consider a partnership or a collaboration with an organization that has done this before. Or if you're doing it, you can create a community of practice around you and help share the knowledge, help share your expertise and what you found was useful, what was not useful, etc. you've got to focus on the ethical considerations and embedding these principles from the very beginning, before something happens and then you realize, oh no, it's all biased in towards this group of people, or we completely forgetting about this group of people and they were cut out of the results. And then you got to iterate and evaluate. So go through the motions again and again, assessing the impact, assessing the effectiveness of it, and seeing what's working and what's not working. So the second document that I've got for you is an AI system audit. And the audit will allow you to check your compliance with the ethical AI guidelines and the governance policies. And it helps you create those policies if they're missing. It'll help you assess the effectiveness of the existing risk mitigation. So, have you considered it? What are the risks in data and privacy? What are the risks for inclusivity and accessibility? And how can you put blocks in the way to make sure that this is controlled and accessed in a good way? It'll help you identify potential new or emerging risks and to keep on top of those and figure out how to action those. There's an evaluation section with the performance, the fairness, and how robust the AI system is working in a real world situation and deployment. So evaluating it once you've run it through your system in a small way, you can take some actions and then use this to build other use cases for other areas of the organization. And it also shows you how to recommend improvements for this AI development and operations. So it's a very lengthy document, but it's very useful to focus on how, the audit in your system and how you can use AI for the best uses. And with that, that is our overview of AI ethics. Very happy to answer any other questions. If you want to share with your microphone or if you want to put them in the chat, please go ahead. I am here to help. And then also just a little shout out. There is a third download, and you can download a list of AI tools by clicking on the link here. And it separates these tools into content creation, marketing, brainstorming, images, etc., etc. And then there are 3 different courses that might be interesting to you. So there are courses on AI for automating your business operations and marketing, how to use AI to write a research paper. That's very useful for students. And then AI as your writing partner, practical content creation, which is really useful if you're a copywriter, if you write the email newsletters or the social media and marketing content for your organization. So you might want to take a look at that course. And that brings us to the end of this webinar. So I see we've got like 15 or so minutes. If you do have a question, please feel free to ask. I am very happy to help with the knowledge that I have and what I've been working on. And I'm just going to grab. Okay, good. So that's a really good question. Thank you for asking. So the question is it best for nonprofits to disclose the use of AI in marketing and other materials? I would say, as a best practice, it depends how much you're using AI. So, as an example, I'm starting to write a book this summer, and I've decided a little AI policy that's like 2 pages long of what am I going to use the AI for and what am I not going to use it for. And I'm going to use AI at the beginning of the process to help me with research, to help me make sure that I've got a good structure and a flow of the book, to make sure that I've thought about the things that I need to think about and to get it to give me information that I haven't thought about. But from that point onwards, from the structure and from the brainstorming and the research, I'm going to do all the writing myself because the human content and the human knowledge in my sector that I'm looking at, it needs to come from me. It can't come from an artificial intelligence. So I'm going to put a little section in the book that explains, okay, I have used AI for this, 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 but after this step in the process, I've edited, revised like a dozen times, and everything is written from my perspective. So that's what I would recommend to you to think about. Where are you going to use it? Uh, if you're going through a lot of revision, editing, double checking, sending it to another team member, then how much of it is AI created? Like, what sort of percentage are you starting to work with? If it's minimal and if it's at the beginning, I wouldn't worry about best practices or letting people know. However, if you're, uh, I can give you a second example. I co-host a podcast called The Connectors, and we record on a platform that's called Riverside, and Riverside has AI embedded. And once we finished recording, we get Riverside to create the content that we put into the description of each episode. And we do a quick revision, and then we put it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that good stuff. So in that instance, we're very honest about using AI. And if we're posting episodes on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, we do put a little disclaimer, or we say, and I've used AI to help me create this content, so that people do understand that what they're reading is being minimally edited by a human being. So yeah, good question. Thank you for that. So let me grab the, where is it? I have too many tabs open. So I can grab AI, AI strategy. Okay. And I'm just gonna pop that into the chat. So you can click on that, and it will give you a copy of today's presentation, and you'll be able to download the AI risk assessment framework and the AI system audit template, as well as the list of AI tools that could be useful for you. And that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's really nice to read. I'm glad that you found that useful. Please do reach out if you've got any questions, and if I can help you with anything else. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you at some more webinars. Thank you very much for joining today.